Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey.
We did part one of Ready to Die, the debut album, the only album released in his lifetime for the Notorious B.I.G, Biggie Smalls. Not a huge introduction here today, kids. If you've listened to part one, then you did get some backstory here, some context. We'll give a little bit more here today before we get cranking. But we did review the first 9 songs on this classic album. I referred to the man as a phenom last week. I will maintain that position because after having listened 10 through 19 multiple times here today myself, man, are there some cool tracks on 10 through 19, which we kind of said at the end of last time that, yeah, really the heavy hitters we had not quite gotten to yet. We're going to get to them today, kids, so just you wait. I think you'll enjoy this one. Lots of good things to talk about, lots of good stuff to cover. And yes, last episode was episode number 187. It's just a coincidence, folks. That was not planned. We know how Mr. Smalls checked out. Again, it was nothing set up by yours truly. Sometimes numbers just do weird things sometimes. But before we get cracking, how's about this? Ready to Die is the debut studio album by American rapper Notorious B.I.G, released on September 13th, 1994 by Bad Boy Records and Arista Records. The album features productions by Bad Boy founder Sean Puffy Combs, Easy Mo B, Chucky Thompson, DJ Premier, and Lord Finesse, among others. It was recorded from 93 to 94 at the Hit Factory and D&D Studios in New York City. The partly autobiographical album tells the story of the rapper's existence as a young criminal and was the only studio album, as we said, released during his lifetime, as he was murdered 16 days before the release of his second album, Life After Death, in 1997. The album features a sole guest appearance from Wu-Tang member Method Man. As we said, recorded 93 to 94, released on September 13th, 1994. Yes, as we record this today, it is celebrating an anniversary, which is crazy to think it's been that many years. And that is your lowdown for Ready to Die. Phil, we're going to get to the meat of this album here today, my friend, tracks 10 through 19. You're right what you said on part one, man. We kick off track number 10 with Juicy, which is, of course, a hit. I know a lot of this song from the Jay-Z, can I call it a remix of what he and Biggie did later on? And so I sort of remember that song for that. I'll be honest with you, Phil, I kind of remember the song more for that than I do this. But right out the gate this time, what's your take on Juicy, track number 10?
Yeah, great record, breakout record for Biggie in a lot of ways. I think it's important that it kind of set a tonal change for the album and for him as an artist. Because the first half of the album is very much like what you'd expect from Biggie coming off his demo tapes and what we heard from him off his mixtapes. Very, very gritty, very dark, street themed, and this one is totally different production wise with the sample on it. Of course, as the story goes, Biggie was very much against this beat once he heard it. This was Puff's idea to go with this, based on the rest of Puff's catalog. Of course, that's not that big of a surprise. But I think it's also important because tonally, this beat sounds so much different. It doesn't sound like a beat that he would get on and do well on, but it's such a big part of his story. And just like opening it and with the "It was all a dream, I used to read Word Up magazine," and just getting into his like breaking into hip hop and then like having this kind of I made it moment with this record. It's a big part of what made him into who he was. It's a big part of his success.
It's very much a Puffy beat, isn't it? Now that you mention, I can hear it now.
Yes.
Yeah. I can see where, yeah.
His career wouldn't be what it is without the Juicy record.
That's
at
true.
all.
That's fair. Yeah. Do you prefer this or do you prefer what he did with, now listen, refresh my memory because I'm hazy on this. We've covered Jay-Z stuff with Biggie, was that done posthumously, or was Biggie still with us when he did that? He wasn't with us when he did that, was he?
Oh, when he used the verse for the Blueprint 2 record?
Yes.
Yeah, oh, yeah, he had long passed away because Blueprint 2 came
That's what I
out
thought.
2012.
You're right. Oh my goodness, you're right. I don't know why I got fuzzy on the year. Gosh, man.
I think it
That
was
just goes
2012.
to show you how good that record sounded, dude.
Yeah. Had to be like 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that just goes to show how influential this record is for Juicy. Like the first verse of it, of course, there's so many lines of it that have turned into like one liner for other rappers, has turned into album titles for other rappers. Born
Mm.
Sinner, the opposite of a winner, man, they used to eat sardines for dinner. That is the Born Sinner is the title of a J. Cole album. There's so
Oh,
many things
nice.
out of this. I mean, if you don't know, now you know. Just think about how much that turned into a thing for Biggie after this song. How many people
Yeah, yeah.
use that as like a one liner? How many people use that in songs? Hit Row, how that was a thing even in wrestling. Just how influential
Hmm.
so many things from this were. Him rapping about the red and black lumberjack and how there's so many Biggie isms for this song that like influenced hip hop in a big way.
Christian used that at one time. Remember? If you don't know, now you know.
Yes.
Ah, yeah. I forgot all about that. That's true. Yeah. Influential's 100% right. You're right. The beat may not be the greatest in the world, but his rap, of course, his rhyme is his delivery's great as always. This is actually the first single from this album. The track, as you said, that established him, really made a name for himself with this song. It was one of the first mainstream rap songs about a rapper's own rise to the top, which is crazy to think about. It took till 94 for that to happen.
Yeah.
That's kind of mind blowing to me.
I know it doesn't sound like, just knowing everything we know about Biggie coming in, that it doesn't sound like something that he would rap over, but it just fits him so perfect. And I guess it's just how well he came with the subject matter for it, how well he rapped over this beat. He really made it
Mm.
his own.
He really did. The title is derived from Matume's, and hopefully I pronounced that correctly, 83 hit Juicy Fruit. Tony Humphrey's fruity instrumental remix was sampled directly for the beat. The chorus of Juicy is a flip of Matume's chorus with a slightly different words, sung by uncredited R&B group Total.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and cool because like the Matume man, let me tell you something. He's a former percussionist, previously played and toured with Miles Davis in the early 70s. So this guy has a track record of playing with some great artists. So like at least the beat was taken from an established band with some great roots there. So I got to appreciate that at least.
Yeah. Juicy Fruit is a great record as well. And so
Mm.
it's one of those, like, it's such a classic record that once you like pick up where it's from, it's like, oh yeah. But yeah, I feel like this just taking on a life of its own, with the sample.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. And they call out Bad Boy Records in here, which is, become a thing. I feel like every artist on Death Row called out the words Death Row in every song, it seems like. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So kind of became a thing of we have to pay respect to the label that, you know,
Yeah.
Death Row is the label that pays me, right? So Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, when I was dead broke, man, I couldn't picture this. 50-inch screen, money green leather sofa, got to ride limousine with a chauffeur. That's a great little rhyme right there. I like that.
Yeah. He floats over this beat, man. He's
Yeah.
he's incredible on there. His lyrics on there are great. His flow on here is fantastic. I feel like he gets so much character and shine out of this. I mean, I think in just this one song, you get so much of who he is as a rapper.
Hmm. Good call. Yeah, yeah. Born sinner, the opposite of a winner. Remember when I used to eat sardines for dinner? Yeah. Yeah, that's good. He shouts out Ron G, Brucey B, Kid Capri, Funkmaster Flex, Love Bug Starsky. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, you're right. It's a classic, man. 100% a classic. Um, Really good tune. Is this the one you think he's the most remembered? Because in my head, I feel like Hypnotize there's a great case for Hypnotize being his most remembered track.
Yeah.
And Big Papa, of course,
It's a It's in his top five. I think of like the
yeah.
top quintessential Biggie records. I think it's Juicy, Hypnotize, Big Papa, of course.
Mhm. Yeah, gosh. And he was around no time, and look at the impact he had.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I mean that song in itself, it's just man. Like I said, there's so many things from just Juicy that had like such a big impact on hip hop, man, and just so many
Mhm.
people have taken lines from it or used it as like the influence for a song or album title or something.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, again, I looking over his tracks and everything, and again, the impact he had, it's crazy. Um, how much the guy accomplished in such a short amount of time, then to be taken as soon as he was, it's just a shame. Track number 11, by the way, Juicy Kids came in at 4 minutes 46 seconds. Track number 11 is Everyday Struggle, 5 minutes 19 seconds. Dave Grusin's Either Way is on here, and the Five Stair Steps Don't Change Your Love has been sampled on this one as well. I like this song a lot, but when your opening song, your opening lyric is "I don't want to live no more." Sometimes I hear death knocking at my front door. I mean, Phil, had he not been killed, all these songs are just rap songs.
Hmm.
But the fact that he died in the fashion that he did makes these lyrics seem that more deep, or deeper, I should say. What do you think about Everyday Struggle?
Everyday Struggle is probably my favorite song in the album. It's the song that I
Mm,
listen to the most off the album. I love the beat on this record. I love
yeah,
Big's flow on it. Um, and it's just such a great record to me.
it's really good. Basically, the whole song is about him, the life of a drug kingpin with his trademark disregard for his own well being. How deeply rooted? Look, we don't have to get too psychological on this guy, right? Rest his soul. But like this idea that he doesn't, I don't know how much. Again, Phil, it's a weird question from part one, and maybe we don't have the answer in front of us. I don't know, but how much of this is character, and how much of this is him? I don't know. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't know, dude. It's hard to know, right? Like, what's the answer to that?
I think a lot of it is stems from like his real life stuff, but I think he's also putting on more for the rap character as well.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, I think that that's such so much of a theme of this album, "Ready to Die." Of like having this belief that this rap thing is gonna get me out of this, and making it will get me out of this, but still having so much PTSD and all of these things from where you came from. Of just like, yeah, I'm doing it for now, but also I know where I came from, and I know that this could end at any point.
yeah, that's fair. I mean, you're lucky to have 5 years in the music business, Phil. If you're good, and there's so many liars and thieves in that business, right? Like you're lucky if you make it that long. I mean, to that point, he didn't know how long it was going to last anyway. I mean, it's something to think about. See, selling drugs to all the losers, mad Buddha abuser, but they don't know about your stress filled day, baby on the way, mad bills to pay. That's why you drink Tanqueray so you can reminisce. Yeah, man, smooth, smooth. It's funny, man, because like when in his delivery, he sounds, I don't know if angry is the right word, Phil. Like DMX sounds angry, right?
Hmm.
But like Biggie doesn't sound angry. He just sounds intense. His delivery is intense. Like, I don't know what other word to describe it. Who else have we heard really that had that sort of delivery that was it immediately commanded attention? That's what I'll say about this guy. Immediately commands attention. I can really hear that on this song too.
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison with X. The X, a lot of times you could feel his anger and his passion come across. Um,
Mm.
but Biggie, he felt like a boss because in a lot of his records, he felt like jaded and like weary from all these things he went from. But he still had like this smoothness to him, like none of that's gonna get me down. I'm still gonna show up in the suits and the sunglasses and the Coogee, the Jesus piece. But he always had like this like ruggedness and this jadedness to him that also like made you take him seriously.
Yeah, it's like taking me serious without screaming, without yelling, without. I mean, Snoop like everyone's got their own delivery, right? Snoop's delivery was a lot more casual, a lot more laid back. You could argue that more people could possibly allow it to become something they'd listen to versus someone being highly intense. But I think there's credence to both, and I mean, Biggie did what worked for him, obviously.
He wasn't a high energy guy. He kind of stayed in his pocket.
Yeah,
He stayed really smooth, and he had like this kind of he just had this tone to him that like he always felt like worldly, like he saw so much before he got to these records.
Yeah, I mean, just like a good bass player. Like he's not overpowering the song. He's sitting back in the groove, and he's doing what the song needs. He's not over dramatic. He's not over performing. He's doing what the song needs. I kind of feel like it's what he does here.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good tune. 5 minutes and 19 seconds for that one. Number 12, since we try to keep it clean here on the 6M Kids, we're going to call this one Me and My B. All right. 4 minutes even for this song. Boy, you talk about a song that's, it's the idea of, the kind of woman that piques his interest and, the kind of woman that sort of ride and die, legit ride and die. I mean, some lyrics in this song pretty much spell it out for you. Like this kind of feels a little bit like a Bonnie and Clyde kind of thing to me. That's kind of how I always listen to this song. But what's your thoughts on this song here?
I think it's a good record in the sense that we've seen this concept before from many rappers, a Bonnie and Clyde type of record. Pac, of course, famously has one. Jay-Z famously has a version of the Pac record, even with like his homage to the Pac hook on it. And so I feel like it fits in that vein. It also it also has one of the worst Biggie lines ever on it.
Yes, it does. Verse 1, right out the gate.
Right out the gate, one of the worst Biggie lines ever. I don't care how many times I hear it. I'm just like, what was he thinking when he put the line? Song, man, it's so bad. It it just doesn't fit at all, man. I don't know what he's thinking with that one, but I think it's another great testament to his storytelling of going through all of this stuff and this because you don't know where this is going, and then you get the very sad ending to the record. It's like, oh, and it's just a testament of how much he can get you engaged into this story, and then build it up to this level where you get the ending and you're so invested. It's like, wow, that kind of stung.
Yeah, like when that line happens, it always makes me wonder. When everybody in the studio heard that line, did they go, "Wait, what did he say?" Like, because it does come from out of nowhere.
Yeah, what a strange line.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I said ride and die. That's what this song is, kids. Go look at the lyrics. You'll see what I mean. But yeah, it's there was comparisons here, whether it's from him or from everybody else, sort of similar to what Apache said on his 92 single Gangsta B, which I can kind of see that correlation. Story is fiction, of course. Laying the story could represent characteristics of Biggie's wife, Faith Evans, and or Lil' Kim, which is fair. A version of this was on the soundtrack for the 95 documentary The Show. The original version was created with a sample of Minnie Riperton's Take a Little Trip, but Stevie Wonder, the song's writer and producer, refused to clear the sample due to the profanity and subject matter. Interesting. Interesting. So instead, yeah, I'm not sure what is sampled on this song, actually. It's crazy. But yeah, that it's interesting that Stevie Wonder's saying no to that. I mean, his right to do it. So coming in on number 13, Phil, this is one of the songs we were speaking about earlier that he's probably going to always be remembered for at 4 minutes and 12 seconds is Big Papa. This thing has been quoted and been talked about and been, I guess sampled to a large degree and used in pop culture and in TV and movies and whatever. It's just one of those songs that just never goes away. Which is good. It's a great song, but like one of these songs, Phil, that he's probably always going to be known for. What do you think about Big Papa? Where is it for you personally among his tracks?
Yeah, definitely one of the top 5 Biggie records ever. It's just great mix of production, amazing hook, just perfect hook for this. I mean, great first line. I mean, when you think of Biggie, you think of that first line often. Like, just man, this is Biggie in this element. This is smooth as you get. just great. I mean, it's also similar to Juicy, and there's so many Biggie isms in it that turned into all of these like influential moments for other people. I mean,
Mhm.
um, just like him just saying "baby, baby" on here is a lot. Like you just think of that a lot. Just think of like the things that this song has like popped up in, like Hardball. Like
Yeah.
I cannot think of Hardball without thinking this record.
I have a weird references to Uncle Drew. When Dax got in Uncle Drew's van and Drew had the Isley Brothers song that this is sampled from, and he thought that's what this was going to be. So he starts rapping, and it's not the song. He's like, "The hell you doing? Don't. What are you doing? You're ruining the song."
Yeah, but I mean, even that, like the Isley Brothers sample that's used for this has been used in other things,
That's
and
true.
it immediately draws people to Big Papa. Like I think the Gwen Stefani record when she samples it, like I don't think Isley Brothers at all when I hear it. I always think Big Papa.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Between the Sheets is that tune, and also
Yes,
Dolly My Baby's on here as well by Supercat.
yes, and I mean Between the Sheets, classic record, classic.
Yeah, yeah,
But I just think like when you think hip hop and like that sample, like it's impossible to not think of Biggie.
yeah. Gosh, it's really good. Hey, hey, kids, Tom Clark here, and did you know the very podcast you're listening to right now is available on boinkstudios.com. B-O-I-N-K, Boink Studios is the home of Tom Clark's Main Event, Tom Clark's 6M podcast, and Two Nations Under Ted, a Ted Lasso podcast. Visit the site today for links to every podcast platform, social media, special announcements, and a lot more. Check out the site and bookmark today, boinkstudios.com. Like you said, he's in his element here. Too much Puff Daddy. How much Puff Daddy's too much Puff Daddy there, Phil? You tell me.
It doesn't really bother me too much on this. There are other songs where I feel like Biggie and Biggie and Puff are. I don't really need as much Puff on it. He's definitely
Mhm.
more obnoxious on something like "Who Shot You."
Yeah, 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 yeah. Now check it. I got more Mac than Craig. I freaking love that line. I got more Mac than Craig, and in the bed, believe me, sweetie, I got enough to feed the needy. Feed the needy's DMX lyric. I wonder that had to have been where X got that from, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that came after Big Papa.
Yeah, yeah. That's pretty cool. No need to be greedy. I got mad friends with Benzes. C notes by the layers, true effing players. Yeah, man. They're classic lyrics, man. You got to say, classic.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I agree with you. I think at any given time, it's the number one, perhaps, for a lot of people who have followed him, and even folks who are just kind of familiar with him. They'll think of this song. It's kind of his signature song. Like he's talking about himself directly, and he gives himself a nickname. Like I don't know, man. I really like it. I mean, I think it fits him 100%.
yeah, probably easily top two. I think Biggie
Yeah.
record at any like at you said it's at any point he could be number one.
Yeah. Track number 14, possibly not in the top 5 in terms of what people remember. I personally love this song at 4 minutes and 33 seconds. This is Respect. And I am, in recent years and more of a Jamaican fan than I ever have been in terms of reggae, like Stephen Marley, Damian Marley, sort of my top 2 guys. But like, I really like the song Respect, man. And I like the hook. I like the way it sounds. I like the beat of it. I love her voice. I think it's really good. What's your take on Respect?
I think it fits him perfectly based on like where he's come from. Um, it's just like just his mother and everything. When you like really look at his background, it fits him perfectly.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm sure if you have like a very basic surface level, uh, a very surface level, um, why am I mixing up my words here? Sorry. If you have a basic remembrance of who Biggie was, if you just know like
Mm.
the main 5 singles, like if you know Juicy and like Big Papa, you might not think like reggae, But like the more
Mm.
you know about him as a person, the more you know about like his background, it fits him.
Yeah, that's good call. It runs down his whole life story, including a whole verse on his birth. And the beat was produced by Poke. Is it Poke or Poke? Is it Poke? I think it's
I
Poke.
think it's Poke.
Yeah. And Puff Daddy and samples I Get Lifted by Casey and the Sunshine Band. Let me tell you something, kids. Musicians tended to get this stuff right for years as the world's going to hell at any given time. Look at Sly and the Family Stone, or look at Casey and the Sunshine Band. Look at a number of other bands who, had black and white all the way through it because they were just making music together. I'm not a big disco guy, Phil, but I respect how hard certain bands hustled through the years and made music that sold a bunch of records, man. You can hate on them, Phil, I guess, but got to respect the hustle. So, yeah, I like this song a lot, man. I just love the way it sounds. So, let's see some of the lyrics here. Actually, the intro is Diana King and B.I.G. and holler respect to all the gunmen. Yeah, I mean, it's again like it's talking about sort of his life here. He mentions New York, of course. Then came the worst date, May 21st, 219. That's when my mama water burst. It's a whole, like you said, whole lyric on his own birth, which is crazy. And he talks about himself in the third person without calling himself by name, kind of be able to step outside himself and talk about his life and everything. Mom said that I should grow up and check myself before I wreck myself. There's an Ice Cube lyric for sure. Scarface, King of New York. Yeah. That Diana King, as we said, is on this song doing that great chorus, man. I freaking love that a lot. And the beat doesn't really go anywhere, Phil, but I think it fits the song,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, big fan of this one. It's actually one of my favorite tunes on the album, honestly. And I don't know if anybody else would agree with that or not, but for me personally, I just love the way this song sounds, man. It's working for me for sure. So, track number 15, bit of a different vibe here, 3 minutes, 28 seconds. Friend of Mine. And a little bit of a backstory here happening, but what's your take here on Friend of Mine, Phil?
I like it well enough. I think that this is where the Puff edition of the samples didn't hit as well. I think that this sample kind of feels out of place.
Hmm.
But I like the song. It's just like even when you get to the hunk and the sample, it's just like, yeah, so that doesn't really fit.
Yeah, I'm actually listening to it right now. Yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, Biggie is great on it. I just think
Mhm.
like the production of it, it's not really what I would have put on this album.
The Jam by Graham Central Station, Seventh Heaven by Gwen Guthrie, and Vicious by Black Mamba are all sampled on here. So yeah, it ain't right. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Here for sure. Yeah, it in terms of backstory here, so one of the things that's been said about this is like bad experiences with women cheating on him, and then the idea is he's going to use them only for sex. We're not advocating that, kids. Just telling you what's said here. The beat produced by Easy Mo B samples the songs that we just discussed. And he had said, quote, Big used to be out on the avenue. He used to be standing out there with a little cease, and we could either find him on the avenue or he was around the corner on his stoop. If I was in the neighborhood, he was in either of them two places. I remember hooking up this beat and finding Big at this fried chicken spot, which to my knowledge is still right there in Fulton between Washington and St. James. I rolled up in the car, got the beat ready. I'm happy. I was like, yo, Big. He came over to the passenger window. I told him to get in and was like, yo, check this out. He said, I'm loving that. I think that was helpful was the hook that I had on there that just told him what to talk about on the record. He ended up doing a relationship type record talking about a chick. And the idea of the hook, you're no friend of mine, that ain't right. That's Black Mambo or Black Mamba. I might have been working with Big, but I was going to pull in a whole other crowd because of that Black Mamba. They were from Paradise Garage. So like there's this idea of maybe pulling in another audience for this song. Again, I don't hate it, but to your point, Phil, there's an awful lot going on. I don't know what could have been pulled back here, you think, to make this more sort of, I don't know, I don't want to use the word hit, but to make this song work a little bit better. What, I mean, I don't know, maybe pull one of the samples out, perhaps? I don't know.
I don't know, cause it's not a bad record. It's just it's not really it's one of my least favorite records on the album. But it's not
Mhm.
like it's terrible. I just
Yeah, yeah,
think
yeah.
like for the second half of the record, like, and we're getting Juicy and all these other big songs. This is the one that kind of stands out. Like, it's not as great as the rest of the second half of the album to me.
And we talked about track 12, Me and My B, and then this one where he's, not being the nicest towards the opposite sex. That's not just rap guys, kids, but rock and roll guys have got this criticism before. They're just singing about the crotch. They're just talking about, having sex or whatnot. That's always going to be a criticism. And well deserved in a lot of respects, Phil, if we're being honest with each other. But um, we do have to say Lil Kim is on this as well. I don't know, man. Like it just makes you wonder, like how was he in real life when you got to know him? Like again, I refer to the word character, which you and I talked a lot on this show about. Sort of the mask that a musician puts on when he's on stage versus what he's like when he comes off stage. I don't know. It makes me wonder how much of that was really him, and did he really feel that way? Was it just a persona? Hard to know now, of course, but I imagine putting that on and taking it off. It's hard. It's like a wrestling character feel like blurs the lines between fiction and reality to a large degree, I suppose.
Uh, yeah, I could definitely see how some of it is character and some of it is blurred the lines between this guy. Um, from his own point of view, has said, it's dark skinned and ugly and he's heavy set and all these other things, but he somehow he's got this charisma to him and he pulls women regardless. And so I can see him being clowned by women early on until he started making money and him still having that kind of contempt based on his early interactions with women.
Yeah.
And of course, that's not to okay some of the stuff that is misogynistic here, but I think it's part of the package of who he is. I mean, there's a reason why when you diss this guy, and Pac came at him. One of the first things that he attacked was his persona as a ladies' man.
Mm, yeah. I mean, Big had things working against him, but I mean, his weight being one of the things that worked against him, obviously.
Yeah,
There's just such a stigma, Phil, attached to appearance, whether you're male or female, honestly.
yeah,
So, yeah, that's kids, if you're in shape, you've never been big, you just don't know. Trust me when I tell you, it's a thing. It's a real thing. And the way people look down their nose at you, it's effing ridiculous. But that's what we're surrounded by, kids. Just a bunch of nonsense. Track number 16 at 3 minutes, 43 seconds. Unbelievable. I can't say I love this tune. I don't hate it. Don't love it. I'm kind of with this. Honestly, where you are with the last track, that's where I'm at with this. On this song, he's sampled Impeach the President by the Honey Drippers, Kitty with the Bent Frame by Quincy Jones, and Your Body's Calling by R. Kelly. I'm not crazy about the unbelievable bite, the hook that happens. It's okay, just not crazy about it. But what's your take on this song? Are you a fan of this tune?
yeah. I really like "Unbelievable." I
Yeah.
think taking that sample from the R. Kelly record, "Unbelievable." I think, of course, the iconic first line of this live from Best Stuyvesant, the livest one.
Yeah.
Just so dope. It's just I think this is one of those iconic Biggie records. I wouldn't say like Big Pop and those other records I mentioned in this top five, but I think this is one of his more memorable records from this album.
Yeah, I like him on it. I like him on it quite a bit. I'm just for me the beat's not doing much for me. But yeah, again, I like him on it. I think his delivery's good. His lyrics are great. They know B.I.G. be handling with the Mac and the AC door paneling. I like that a lot. I don't know why that cracks me up, but I really like that. bandaging MCs, oxygen, they can't breathe, mad tricks up the sleeve. Yeah. I won't finish the next line, but yeah, you get it. You can read, kids, can't you? Your life is played out like Kwame. That's a line for you.
Yeah, he references Kwame and the polka dots on here. Really great. That's a deep cut if you don't know who Kwame is.
Right. That's really good. So some of the backstory on this was actually the last song recorded for this album. I was ready to be turned in, but Biggie specifically wanted to get a straight banger from Primo to use as the B-side for this album's radio-friendly lead single, Juicy. At the time, Premier lived in the Brooklyn home of musician Branford Marsalis, there's a legend for you kids, and constantly crossed paths with Biggie, who played him selections from the album. And let's see, Premier used Warning as inspiration and hooked up the beat while using a line from Biggie's track, The What, and had a line from R. Kelly's 93 single, Your Body's Calling, as we said, for the hook, which was specifically requested by Biggie himself. Since the album was ready for submission before the song's creation, the budget was closed. So Premier only charged Biggie $5,000 for the track at a time. He was an in-demand producer during the boom rap era of the mid-90s.
Yeah.
So there you go. Nice little tidbit.
I mean, when you listen to this record, it sounds like a Premier beat. It's big Primo influence from that time period. Big New York hip-hop influence on this. And I think that's another reason why it feels so iconic. Not just his lines and his verses on here, but it's Primo. It's like, this is like hip-hop royalty. Anybody that was anybody in New York rapped over a Primo beat.
Yeah. And what's funny is this song almost didn't make it. According to Premier, Biggie called him at the last minute and said, give me a track. And he said, I don't have time to make one. I had other deadlines to meet at the time. But he knew that Biggie was about to blow up, and he loved the guy, and he wanted to help. He just didn't really have the time. And then Biggie's finally like, look, what do I got to do to get this put on? What do I got to do here? And he said, according to Premier, he says, well, you messing with Puff. And he's like, yeah, but he's taking too long. And he's like, all right, stay with him. He's going to help you get rich. But he was just impatient like all artists. And he just kept on him. And he kept begging. He's like, please, I want this. You got to do this for me. And he said, I got no more money in the budget. All I got's $5,000. And that's all he could pay him. That's a great story.
Yeah.
But, so, yeah.
Very hip hop record. I mean, from the sample, the scratches and everything towards the end of it. Yeah, very, very New York hip hop, man.
That's a good way to describe it. I'm with that. Yeah. Let's see. Track number 17, kids. This is a heavy one. This is Suicidal Thoughts at 2 minutes, 50 seconds. And it's everything the title would have you believe and then some. This is the final track off the classic album, but we're also doing the other two songs here that's actually off the remastered edition that we'll cover here shortly. But there's a telephone effect on here. Puffy's answering the phone at the beginning of the song. And man, Phil, the vibe of this song is very heavy. Like very heavy. What's your feelings on this? Does this work for you? Is it too heavy? I mean, what's your take on this, on Suicidal Thoughts?
Very heavy record. I think it's very good storytelling on it. The other things on it that I take less seriously, and I laugh at every time I hear it, like, hey, yo, Big! Hey, yo, Big!
Yeah. Yeah. No one accused him of being a great actor.
Yeah, but I mean, the verse on this, of course, is used often outside of this. I feel like it's been used in other songs. It's been used in the Dying record with Tupac, which is, the posthumous song that has the two of them on it. I believe the first verse from here is on there.
Yeah, when I die, I want to go to hell. Jeez Louise, man. It don't make sense going to heaven with the goody-goodies dressed in white. I like black Tims and black hoodies. God will probably have me on some real strict stuff, no sleeping all day, and no other things that I'm not going to repeat.
Yeah, very classic Biggie verse.
Yeah, well, for sure, yeah, because it's out of the blue. It's just vulgarness. Sometimes it felt like with him, I'm just going to be vulgar because I can. I don't really have a reason for it. I mean, look, kids, you could say all kinds of stuff. He was 22.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was 22, I was thinking stuff. We all were as young men, weren't we? Maybe we didn't say it on a rap record. We're still thinking it,
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Lied to my mother, even stealing out her purse, crime after crime, from drugs to extortion. I know my mother wished she got a effing abortion. Dude.
Yeah, very dark. I feel like it
Yeah.
hits different because if it hits different on the Pac song, it could be just the sample that Eminem used for that one, and just the fact that it's next to the Pac verse. Um,
Mm,
that verse hits so much different on this song.
yeah. I mean, it does sound like this is an entire conversation where he's just ranting and Puffy can't get him to stop. And he's trying to get him to listen to him, but he won't listen. Man, it's crazy. But yeah, the idea here, kids, is that he called him in the middle of the night and he's telling him he's don't want to be here anymore. And he's expressing guilt for all the crimes he's committed. Puff tries to talk him out of doing what he feels like he's going to do. The telephone effect used on Puffy's vocals, as well as other sound effects, make the track both cinematic and haunting, which I agree with that totally. You can even hear Biggie falling to the floor despite Puff's pleas. Biggie pulls the trigger. So, yeah. His fictional death directly ties into his follow up album, 1997's Life After Death. There you go. Again, Phil, the way he checked out is just makes this even more eerie. So, this one produced by Lord Finesse. It's a heavy one, kids. We're gonna cover two more here. We're gonna cover at number 18 at 5 minutes 19 seconds. Who Shot Ya? Every time I hear the title of this song, Phil, I think about Jay-Z. I forget which Blueprint album. No, I forget. I think it's Jay. Who Shot Ya? That always pops into my head.
Yeah.
What do you think about track 18? What you got about this one?
Very classic record, very infamous record for what it's attached to. Of course, this is attached to his beef with Tupac.
Mm,
This was the infamous diss track that he recorded, and he performed sometimes, but this was kind of the thing that started the tension between him and Pac, because, of course, the run-in with Pac in the studio with the guys that actually did shoot him, and that's kind of the reference of the title of this record of "You know who shot you? It wasn't me." And
mm.
but it's just one of those when it comes to diss tracks, and just that first line of "Who shot you?" Separate the weak from the mobsters.
Mm.
Just great record. Of course, you've got obnoxious Puff screaming all over this thing as we proceed to give you what you need. 9-5 East Coast.
Yeah, it's an awful lot of him. Yeah, just saying.
Yeah, probably more of him than I need, but
Yeah,
yeah, still classic diss record.
it is. Yeah. Biggie's warning to his adversaries not to mess with him, and if they do, he will return the favor by killing them. But as we said, there's a lot more to it than this.
Tom Clark 6M Podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information, and tell them that Tom Clark 6M Podcast sent you.
And yeah, by the way, we didn't mention on Suicidal Thoughts, Miles Davis is actually sampled on that with Lonely Fire and Brethren's Outside Love. On this song, it's I'm Afraid the Masquerade is Over by David Porter.
Yeah.
Is a song that's sampled.
Yeah, it's one of those hip hop records that it gets referenced a lot. Very influential. That piano, doom, doom, doo, 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 doo. I feel like we've heard it a lot when people are trying
Mm.
to get in there, either their uh adversary mode of trying to poke at other rappers, or trying to let people know that beef is serious now, because it's just one of those diss tracks. Of course, it doesn't have the impact of Hit 'Em Up, but this is
Mm.
one of the first records between him and Pac.
Yeah, to your point, November 30th, 94, Tupac was shot and robbed at Quad Studios in New York. He accused Puff, Jimmy Henchman, and Biggie for setting up the attack. Who Shot Ya fueled Pac's suspicions as he saw it as a diss track toward him. And he later responded to the song with Hit 'Em Up and Bomb First.
That's right, because this song was recorded before the incident at the studio, and
Mm-hmm.
Pac felt like uh, he put this record out to mock him because he knew who shot him. But Biggie started recording the song in the opposite way of him saying, "No, no, 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 you know who shot you. This song was recorded before that, but it was too late. It was already heated tension between them, and like I said, this became one of those records where it's not necessarily a diss record, but it's turned into this thing later on. Because that's right. There's a scene in Notorious where he tries to explain it before he does the song on stage, and Puff's next to him like, "Don't do that song, Big."
Listen, depending on who you ask and depending on what stories you hear, hadn't they supposedly mended fences by the end, or do we just not know the answer to that?
I think that's one of those unanswered questions where we don't know specifically what happened, but the fact that both of them died because of links to this beef and this East Coast West Coast thing that got way out of control.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just a shame. None of
Yeah,
this had to happen.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think the unfortunate thing about who shot you and everything around their beef is that none of that stuff with Pac had to happen. Pac was hanging with people he shouldn't have been hanging out with. He was doing stuff he didn't need to do to keep up appearances. And I feel like there were a lot of
Mm.
things he was doing in the last few years of his life that he was way too big to be doing. He didn't need to be among a certain crowd. He was around people that had nothing to lose, and he had everything to lose. And
Mm.
it just didn't make any sense to be doing some of the things he did. And I feel like those kind of actions ultimately led to his demise. And it's just unfortunate. And of course, with that, it put this dark cloud over Big, and it created this perception of who he was that wasn't based on reality.
Mm. That's a good call. Yeah. It's a shame, man. Like two such talented guys, man. Like they never worked together, did they? Are they on a track together at all, like ever?
I believe there's an unreleased song that they're on together. They've definitely performed
Interesting.
together early in their career because they were friends.
Yeah. Yeah. There's photos of them together. I've seen those pics before. Yeah, man, we won't spend too much time on it, but man, what a shame. What a shame. Um, what could have been. So the last track on this album, kids, we wrap up with number 19. This is Just Playing. And I'll be honest with you, I'm glad we covered 18 and 19 because I didn't want, I'm glad Suicidal Thoughts didn't end this record because it shouldn't. I really dig this song. I freaking love the beat. I love the hook. I love just about everything about it. Big fan of this track. I kind of wish it was longer, if I'm being honest with you. I just like it so much. But what do you think about Just Playing on the last track on the album here?
Yeah, another one of those very influential rap records of him rapping about dreams of getting with an R&B singer, and he name drops all of these R&B singers at the time. We've seen other people take this concept and flip it. I believe Nicki Minaj flipped it, um, but it's just such a smart concept to come up with at that time. Very original.
Mm.
And I agree with you. I think the beat is great. I think he's phenomenal on it. I think it's his best kind of like tongue in cheek storytelling that he's known
Mm.
for later.
I remember a Five Dog doing that stuff in Tribe.
Yes. Yes.
He would just randomly call out women, like famous women, and talk about how whatever. Like, and we'd always bump into that. Like, oh my god, it's funny. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it became kind of a New York hip hop thing. Because, I referenced Nicki, and Nicki's a New York rapper. So I think it's seen as like this, you know, badge of honor to go with what a lot of people consider like the greatest New York rapper to kind of step in his shoes and take on one of his concept, or use one of his one liners, or do things like wear a Jesus piece. There's so many things he did that left such a lasting impact, not just on hip hop as a whole, but just on New York, and just how many artists from New York did things in the same vein that he did them.
Yeah. The lyrics here are fantastic. The whole first verse is great. I'd probably go to jail for effing Patti LaBelle. Regina Belle, she'd probably do me swell. Jasmine Guy was fly. Mariah Carey's kind of scary. What about my honey Mary? Them jeans, they fit like a glove. I had a crush on you since real love. I'm gonna show you who the boss of intercourse. Hold your horses. I'm gonna show you who the boss of intercourse is. That's a long way to get around to rhyme that, but I'm here for it. Even groups like SWV and TLC can't see BIG with telepathy. Are you kidding me? Shut up. It's awesome. It's really, really good.
Yeah, great artist, man. I very much every time I listen to his original stuff, I'm just like, man, what could have been if we got more than 2 albums out of him? Um, very original, very charismatic. Um, can be very dark and moody at times, but also can be very fun and energetic at other times. Just yeah, it just had so much more left to give the world, man.
Yeah, for sure. As we wrap up this album, that's something I want to talk to you about for a minute here. Like maybe something that never could have happened because of, let's be honest, number one, machismo that happens among grown men who have reputations and characters and egos and, swagger or whatnot. And, you know, different people I guess, in their posse or in their entourage to keep happy or whatever. But man, can you imagine if both he and Pac had lived and one day had shared the stage at the Grammys or something, or just at least stood side by side and said, we're over this,
Yeah.
we're moving on, you should move on too. I mean, I don't know if that ever could have happened, Phil, but in a perfect world, that would have been something to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was things like that moment of Jay-Z and Nas finally sharing a stage again in the late 2000s,
Mhm.
and how that turned out and how that should have turned out for these two guys if it didn't turn into violence.
Mm,
Now, I mean, of course, these are two different things. I mean,
sure.
Jay said some pretty awful things about us um,
Yeah.
that could have turned into violence. I'm glad that it never did. But I mean, you can even see the impact of their beef on that. I mean, because infamously, Jay Z put out the Super Ugly record, and his mother forced him to call the radio station to apologize because she didn't want this to turn into what it turned into for Pac and Biggie, where something turned violent, and next thing you know, this incredibly talented guy is no longer here anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, man. It's like a moment in time. I guess that's why, to me, I don't know, dude. Like, I think I asked you this in part one, like this idea of, is he frozen in a moment of time? Is Pac frozen in a moment of time? Because they're never going to get older. We're always going to see them at the age they were when they passed and younger. And that's who we know. And it's, oh man, what a freaking shame, dude. Like, I know it's years after the fact, and I'm not saying anything that had been said for years since they were killed, but what a shame things ended the way they did.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think it says everything that they're both still incredibly relevant artists. Not just their body of work and what they represented as rappers, but I think also the cautionary tale that came with it.
Cautionary tale is a good way to put it. I mean, look, I'm going to show my ignorance here, Phil, because I mean, a lot of the hip hop my kid listens to now, there have been rappers who have been killed in the past several years. I
Yeah.
just don't know to what extent. I mean, this is a dumb question, so forgive me, but like, is this still like the whole, is it more now personal between guys? Is it still an East Coast, West Coast thing? I honestly don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, there's still people dying over rap. There's still people getting in songs and throwing shots at people, and then it turns into violence. But a lot of it is street stuff that these guys should have gotten away from. A lot of these people are dying too soon, staying linked to people that they should have moved on from. Uh, and I think that's unfortunate thing about this. It's just an unfortunate part of where a lot of these people come from. You get big and you don't want to leave all of your friends behind, but sometimes you have to. You can't stay in the same circles with people the bigger you become, because everybody can't come with you, man. It just that's
Mm.
just the unfortunate thing about it. I know we all want to kind of take our hand back and bring some of the people that we've known our entire lives with us, or bring somebody that feels real to us among all of this glitz and stuff, but can't take everybody with you, man.
Yeah, you can't just can't take care of everybody, man. I think that's part of, like you said, that's part of the problem is that you feel like you got friends you grew up with, you have your guys and people that supported you when you had nothing, and you feel like you got to take care of them. It's the MC Hammer thing, except there's, thankfully for him, none of their stuff ended in like violence that I'm aware of anyway. But they just bled him dry essentially. But like this idea, Phil, that I got to take care of my guys, like, yeah, but you got to be careful who you let into your life, Phil. Whether you're a rapper or you drive a truck, you got to be careful who you let into your inner circle, man. It's important.
Yeah, keeping certain people in your inner circle, taking on and keeping beefs with people that you shouldn't be keeping beefs on, jumping into stuff that you don't need to be in. Just a lot of these guys, I just wish they would make better choices.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I mean, it's sad that hip hop has been around for 50 years, and there are so many artists that made such a huge impact on the world, and their lives were cut short by violence.
Yeah.
Just the fact that in part one I mixed up who was caught, because we had the story recently about Jam Master Jay, and it turned out it was like family that got to him. It was his family that set him up.
Jesus,
It's
man.
horrible. And I think, to go back to the discussion we had in part one, I believe that there was the guy that was a part of Biggie shooting did just recently get arrested.
Yeah.
The same thing with Biggie, where it was the police officer that was attached to it. He's just now recently getting caught up. I mean, Nipsey Hussle was another one recently. Guy that shot him just recently, like in the last few years, got caught up. But yeah, it's just so unfortunate. There's so much violence that's linked to hip hop, and a lot of these guys don't get the happy ending that they should. They don't get to end their lives on a good note.
I mean, at any given time, things could have went south for Jay-Z. At any given time, I mean, Snoop was up on murder charges. I mean, it could have went south for him. I mean, these guys who are still with us, thankfully, but like, man, a lot of their friends gone for years. Freaking crazy, man. It's kind of like, forgive me. We're wrestling guys. We always throw that stuff in, but like, there's wrestlers walking around today who a lot of their friends have been gone for 20, 30 years, Phil, because they are, whatever the time period is, because wrestlers tend to die young. Like, man, it's a shame, man. Well, kids, we don't want to end this on too much of a bad note, but I will say this. This guy had a lot more career to go, a lot more things he could have done. And unfortunately for us, he never got to do any of them. We can be upset about that all day long, and we are. And for anybody out there, if you're into your favorite rapper or whatnot, look, let's just hope that people, cooler heads prevail. I guess this is not much wisdom coming from me, but you just talented guys getting cut down to prime field. There's just no excuse for it at all. So hopefully one of these days we'll all grow up and start to realize life's too short as it is. We need to quit effing around and just enjoy what we have while we have it. So there's my soapbox moment from the 6M podcast. You're welcome. Phil, before we take this home, my friend, let's try to put a button on it. Give me your last word on Ready to Die.
Classic hip hop album. Had a massive influence on a lot of artists afterwards. This was Biggie's coming out party, and it's part of what made him into the global superstar he became. I wish that he would have got to see what the second album became. I wish he would have been able to give us more output, but just for one album, what this did, this was a huge breakout moment for him.
Yeah. I mean, it's a classic, kids. If you're a hip hop fan of any level, then this album is a classic. It'll stand the test of time. It's still with us now, still being talked about, still being sampled. It's always going to be with us. And I mean, again, this album has a little bit of something for everybody, I believe, if you're a hip hop fan. So go check it out. And I promise you, if you haven't listened to it in a while, you're going to enjoy it. And if this is your first time kind of going through with us, we appreciate you. And keep checking it out, man, because there's a lot more stuff that we have yet to cover on this show, a lot more classic albums that we'll get to one at a time. And I'm glad that we got this one done. And trust me, there'll be more on the way. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, that is Ready to Die.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.